The day after prom, I broke up with Chloe Davis in front of the entire senior class. She just scoffed. Is this because I had the first dance with Ethan Vance last night instead of you? The whole class started whispering, everyone convinced I was being petty and throwing a tantrum. No one knew that last night. I'd overheard her telling Ethan, Liam, he's just a useful backup plan. I quietly changed my top college choice from Duke to MIT, putting 1,000 miles between us. 3 years later, at our first college reunion, she asked me with tears in her eyes why I had been so cruel back then. I swirled the whiskey in my glass and smiled. Funny story, the night you danced with Ethan, I won $5 million in the lottery. The air in the gym on prom night was thick and sticky. The champagne tower, definitely just sparkling cider, refracted the fractured light from the disco ball, making everything glitter and blur. The music was a physical force, pounding through the floor as teenagers in ill-fitting dresses and rented tuxes packed the dance floor, burning through the last few hours of their high school lives. Liam Miller stood in the shadows of the bleachers, the ice in his plastic cup of orange soda long since melted. His eyes were glued to the radiant figure across the room. Chloe Davis. She looked incredible tonight. Her blush-pink strapless dress highlighted the long, graceful line of her neck and her flawless skin. She was tilting her head back, laughing at something Ethan Vance had said, her eyes sparkling with a familiar, yet distant, brilliance. Ethan Vance. He was the king of their school, from a wealthy family, handsome, captain of the basketball team, the protagonist in every girl's diary. The student council president was on the makeshift stage, shouting into the microphone. And now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, kicking off the night with our ceremonial first dance. Please welcome your prom king and queen, Ethan Vance and Chloe Davis. A wave of applause and whistles crashed through the gym. A single spotlight found them instantly. Ethan gave a mock bow, a perfect gentleman's invitation. Chloe's cheeks flushed, a mixture of feigned shyness and undeniable pride at being the center of attention. She placed her hand gently in his. The DJ switched the track to a slow, dreamy waltz. They glided to the center of the floor, a picture-perfect couple. To everyone, it was the most natural thing in the world. The king and the queen, of course. So what did that make Liam? The loyal knight standing guard. No, in most people's eyes, he was probably just the guy who held the reins of the white horse, a glorified stable hand. After all, everyone knew Liam Miller had been trailing after Chloe Davis since they were in kindergarten. For more than a decade, he was at her beck and call. When she was thirsty, he brought her water. When she was hungry, he bought her lunch. When a couple of townies cornered her behind the bleachers, he was the one who grabbed a loose piece of lumber and charged in, earning a faint scar that was still visible on his temple. Everyone said Liam was pathologically in love with Chloe. He believed it, too, until half an hour ago. The heat and the noise of the dance had started to get to him, so he'd headed for the small storage room behind the stage where they were keeping the extra drinks, hoping for a moment of quiet. As he reached the half-open door, the voices from inside stopped him cold. It was Chloe, her tone a casual, dismissive purr. Oh, please. Liam, he's just a useful backup plan. If he wasn't so completely devoted, willing to run errands and get into fights for me all these years, who would have the patience to deal with him? The other voice belonged to Ethan, laced with amusement. I don't know, he seems pretty crazy about you. You basically have a long-term meal ticket and a free bodyguard rolled into one. Whatever, he's happy to do it. Anyway, once college applications are in, it's pretty much over. I can't exactly bring that kind of baggage with me to campus. Can I? So embarrassing. Liam didn't hear what they said after that. A roar filled his ears like 1,000 angry hornets. Backup plan, baggage, happy to do it. The words played on a loop, dripping with a cold mockery that took the fierce, unwavering devotion of his entire youth, flash froze it, and then shattered it into a million pieces. He stood there, motionless. Condensation from his cup trickled down his fingers, a cold trail that seemed to run straight to his heart. All this time, he thought he was writing a love story. He just found out he was the punchline to a joke he wasn't even in on. He looked out at the dance floor, at the perfect arc of Chloe's dress as she spun. It was beautiful, but now it looked like the edge of a poisoned blade, twisting in the last of his affection. He turned around and walked away, leaving the noise and the sticky, sweet air behind him. The next day in homeroom, the post-SATs, pre-graduation restlessness was a tangible thing. The mountains of textbooks were gone, replaced by yearbooks being passed around and the sound of carefree chatter. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. That was when Liam walked over to Chloe's desk. He stopped, his shadow falling long across her desk in the morning light. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise of the classroom with surgical precision. "Chloe, we're done." Silence felt like a guillotine. Every head turned. A mix of shock, confusion, and a hungry excitement of unfolding drama. Chloe had been showing her friend different nail polish swatches for their summer trip. She looked up, startled at first. Then her lips curved into a smirk that was part annoyance, part I knew it. She put the swatches down, leaned back in her chair, and adopted a tone one might use with a pouting child. "Liam, are you serious right now? Is this because I had the first dance with Ethan last night instead of you?" The classroom erupted in hushed whispers. "See, I knew that was it. Seriously? He's that insecure. Chloe should have known better, though. He's so sensitive about Ethan. Sucker's gonna suck." Everyone assumed this was just the culmination of Liam's long-simmering jealousy and possessive outburst. Chloe clearly thought so, too. She looked at him with a sort of patronizing pity, her eyes saying, "Stop making a scene. We both know you can't live without me. Quit while you're ahead. I'll let you save face." But under the weight of everyone's stares, Liam just nodded. No anger, no defense. His calmness was unsettling. "Okay, fine. We're broken up," Chloe said, her voice breezy with a hint of relief. "Don't come crying to me later." She was certain that, within 3 days, Liam would be back, tail between his legs, just like every other time they had a fight. A habit of a dozen years isn't broken overnight. She had no idea that some things, once broken, can never be put back together. Liam said nothing more. He just turned and walked back to his seat. The sun lit up the side of his face, revealing nothing. From that day on, it was as if Liam Miller had partially vanished from Chloe's world. Only partially, because he was still physically present. She'd see him at the local coffee shop or around their neighborhood, but he never approached her. The relentless stream of good morning and good night text stopped. He no longer offered to carry her books. When she had cramps, he no longer showed up with a hot water bottle and her favorite tea. The first day, Chloe was unfazed. It was actually kind of peaceful. The second day, she felt a strange sense of unease. She kept picking up her phone, but his icon in her message history remained stubbornly silent. The third day, she was at the mall with friends, her arms aching from the weight of shopping bags. She instinctively pulled out her phone to call Liam for a ride, but her thumb froze over the call button. A wave of irritation washed over her. "What is his deal? Is he ever going to get over this?" she muttered, angrily shifting the bags in her arms. Mutual friends tried to intervene. "Chloe, I think Liam's for real this time. What's going on with you two?" Staring at her reflection as she perfected her eyeliner, Chloe scoffed. "What do you think is going on? He's throwing a childish tantrum. Just wait. Let's see how long he can keep it up. Who's he going to find that's better than me?" She was completely confident. She even subtly pumped Ethan for information and learned that Liam hadn't confronted him, which only solidified her belief that this was all just a ploy for attention. She waited patiently for him to break, to come crawling back. She waited through the senior class trip to the lake. During the trip, Liam participated in all the group activities, but his gaze never lingered on her. She deliberately laughed and flirted loudly with other guys, but he was busy horsing around with his own friends on the jet skis, their laughter echoing across the water, bright and carefree. Her certainty began to melt away, revealing the jagged edges of anxiety. She waited until the day the college acceptance letters came out. Her scores were good, right where she'd projected, and she got in her dream school, a top-tier university in the South, Duke. She breathed a sigh of relief, her first instinct to call Liam to share the news and maybe offer him an olive branch. She dialed his number. The call went straight to a cold, robotic voice. "The person you are calling is not available at this time." She frowned and dialed again. Same result. She switched to iMessage, found her old chat, and typed, "I got in a Duke. How did you do?" The message sent. Then, a moment later, a small, red notification appeared beneath it. Message failed to send. Chloe stared at the words, her pupils constricting. A chill shot down her fingers. He blocked her. A bizarre, sharp panic seized her heart. How could it? How dare he? Refusing to believe it, she grabbed her friend's phone and dialed his number. This time it rang. The moment he heard her voice, there was a brief pause on the other end, followed by Liam's perfectly calm tone. Chloe? What's up? If it's nothing, I gotta go. I'm in the middle of finalizing my college decision. You blocked me? She shrieked. Yeah, he said, his admission sharp and immediate. We broke up. No reason to stay in touch. Liam, I wish you the best. And before she could respond, the line went dead. The beeping of the disconnected call hammered against her heart. Chloe stood frozen, her friend's phone still pressed to her ear, the color draining from her face. A feeling of being completely out of control, a feeling she had never experienced before, washed over her. Was it possible that Liam really didn't want her anymore? The thought made her shiver. On the afternoon of the National Decision Day deadline, Chloe practically sprinted to the school's computer lab. She frantically scanned the crowded room for his familiar figure. She had to know where he was going. This had to be a bluff. He was definitely going to Duke. He was going to follow her. He loved her that much. She found him just as he was walking out, holding the printed confirmation of his submission. Chloe rushed forward and grabbed his arm, her breathing ragged. Liam, what did you commit? Tell me, where are you going? Liam looked down at her hand, at the white knuckles clenched around his arm. Slowly, deliberately, he pried her fingers off. His movements weren't rough, but they were imbued with an unshakable finality. He met her gaze, his eyes as calm and deep as still water, without a single ripple of emotion. Where I'm going, he said softly, really has nothing to do with you anymore. He stepped around her and walked away. Chloe, unwilling to accept it, spun around and screamed at his retreating back, her voice cracking with a sob she didn't know was coming. Liam, you bastard. Tell me, you picked Duke, right? Liam's footsteps paused for a fraction of a second, but he didn't turn back. His voice floated back to her, light and indifferent. Guess. And then he was gone, disappearing around the corner of the stairwell. Chloe felt as if all her strength had been ripped out of her. She slid down the wall, the noise of the hallway fading into a dull roar. For the first time, she felt a bone-deep chill as she realized the shadow that had followed her for over a decade was well and truly gone. The acceptance letters and college sweatshirts started appearing on social media. The class group chat was on fire, with everyone announcing their future schools. Chloe had her Duke acceptance letter, but the official seal and congratulatory text brought her none of the joy she had expected. She stared at her phone, compulsively refreshing the group chat, searching for any mention of Liam's name. Then someone posted it. Holy SD, you guys are not going to believe this. Liam Miller is going to MIT. The chat went dead silent. A few seconds later, it exploded. Mitt, are you kidding me? Did he even have the grades for that? It's real. You can look it up on the official portal. I screenshotted it. My God, didn't he always say he was going to Duke with Chloe? Damn, talk about keeping a secret. One's in the South, the other's in the Northeast. That's like a permanent breakup. Chloe saw the message, saw the attached screenshot confirming his enrollment at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Her phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a sharp crack, the screen shattering like her entire world had just done. Mitt? He changed his application. He had hidden it from everyone, from North Carolina to Massachusetts. 1,000 miles. He wasn't bluffing. He wasn't throwing a tantrum. He was, with cold, calculated precision, surgically removing himself from her life. So much for a shared future. This was goodbye, forever. So that's what his final guess had meant. Chloe slowly sank to the floor, hugging her knees. Tears, hot and heavy, splattered onto the cold tile, but she couldn't make a sound. 4 years of college flew by. For Liam, those 4 years were a rebirth. At MIT, surrounded by brilliant minds, he shed the high school label of the lovesick puppy and threw himself into his studies and a world of new opportunities. He buried himself in research, joined clubs, co-founded a tech startup with friends. His life was busy, challenging, and fulfilling. Occasionally, late at night, the image of a girl in a blush pink dress would surface in his memory, but the sharp pain was gone, replaced by the faded, dreamlike quality of a past life. He dated, broke up, and lived a full life. The intense emotions of his teenage years have been worn smooth by time. For Chloe, those 4 years felt much longer. She was still beautiful and popular at Duke, pursued by many guys. She tried dating the student body president, a very accomplished guy, but found herself constantly, subconsciously comparing him to Liam. The relationships always fizzled out. She grew quieter, more prone to getting lost in memories of a boy who would always be there to hold an umbrella for her, no matter the storm. Sometimes, she would pull up Liam's old, deactivated social media profiles and just stare at the blank pages. As proud as she was, she never worked up the courage to find and add his new accounts. Time ticked on, leading them inevitably to their first post-college high school reunion. It was held in a private room at an upscale downtown hotel. Liam hadn't planned on going, but the class president had called him several times, insisting that everyone was asking for him. He thought about it and agreed. It was time to put a definitive end to that chapter. He arrived a little late. The room was already buzzing with conversation. His entrance caused a minor stir. The awkward teenager was gone. In his place was a tall, confident man in a well-tailored blazer, his eyes sharp and self-assured. He carried himself with the quiet intensity of someone who had navigated the pressures of a top university and the challenges of building a business from the ground up. "Liam, over here," one of his old friends shouted. He smiled, making his way over, exchanging greetings. His eyes swept the room and landed on Chloe, sitting in a corner. She was still beautiful, perfectly made up, but a shadow of melancholy hung about her. The old arrogance was gone. When her eyes met his, she looked away quickly, a flicker of panic in their depths. After a few rounds of drinks, the atmosphere grew boisterous with the usual reunion cocktail of reminiscing, bragging, and complaining about adult life. Chloe had been drinking steadily, her cheeks flushed. She kept her head down, her fingers clenched around her wine glass as if trying to build up courage. Finally, during a lull in the conversation, she looked up, her gaze locking onto Liam from across the room. "Liam," her voice was sharp, cutting through the pleasant buzz. The room went quiet. All eyes swiveled between the two of them, hungry for the drama that had been brewing for years. The final confrontation. Chloe pushed her chair back and walked unsteadily towards him. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and her voice was thick with suppressed sobs and years of resentment. "Liam, you have to tell me. Why? Why were you so cruel back then? Just because I danced with Ethan? Did our entire history mean so little to you? You just broke up with me, disappeared, and didn't even give me a chance to explain." For years of hurt, confusion, and wounded pride erupted all at once. Tears streamed down her face, ruining her meticulous makeup. Everyone held their breath, watching Liam. The smile on Liam's face slowly faded. He looked at her, at the girl he once would have done anything for, the girl who had shattered his heart without a second thought. He gently swirled the amber liquid in his glass, the light from the chandelier dancing in the whiskey. He didn't answer right away. The room was so quiet you could hear the hum of the air conditioning. After a few seconds, he looked up, a faint, almost lazy smile touching his lips. He looked directly at Chloe, his voice clear and steady. "Funny story," he paused, enjoying the way Chloe, and indeed the entire room, leaned in imperceptibly. "The night you danced with Ethan, I won $5 million in the lottery." Puffed, cough, cough, cough. Someone at a nearby table choked on their drink, spraying soda across the table. Liam's best friend's jaw dropped. The class president's chopsticks clattered onto his plate. The entire room was frozen, a tableau of stunned, disbelieving faces. $5 million. The color drained from Chloe's face, leaving it a ghostly white. She swayed on her feet, looking like she might collapse. Her tear-filled eyes widened in shock, then confusion, and finally, a wave of unbearable, crushing humiliation. He won the lottery, so it was never about jealousy. It wasn't because he was insecure, so he had the means and the motive to leave her all along. So her 4 years of obsession, her regret, her endless questions, they were all a massive cosmic joke to him. She remembered her own smug words, "Don't come crying to me later," and it felt like a physical slap across the face. Who was supposed to be doing the crying? Liam didn't look at her again. He tilted his head back and finished his drink in one smooth motion, the burn of the whiskey a welcome sensation. He set the glass down, picked up his jacket from the back of his chair, and offered a casual smile to the petrified onlookers. "Sorry, everyone, I've got to run. You guys have fun." He turned and walked out of the room with a steady, unhurried stride, never once looking back at the girl left standing in his wake, utterly broken. Behind him, the stunned silence erupted into a tidal wave of frantic, disbelieving chatter that threatened to blow the roof off the place. "Oh my God, $5 million. Is he for real? You couldn't write this stuff. No wonder. No wonder he was so decisive. Holy crap, what a plot twist. Man, Chloe really..." The hallway was carpeted, muffling the chaos behind him. Soft lights gleamed on the polished walls. Through a large window, the city lights sparkled like a fallen galaxy. Liam pressed the button for the elevator. The mirrored doors reflected his face, showing a faint, ironic smile and a profound sense of release. Of course, there was no $5 million. The only thing he'd won on prom night was a front-row seat to his own heartbreak, a confirmation that he was nothing more than a useful backup plan. But what did it matter now? This ridiculous, on-the-spot lie was a far better ending to the story. It was more dramatic, more unbelievable, and a much more effective way to cauterize the wound for good. It ensured she, and everyone else, would never bother him about it again. He didn't need her regret. He didn't need anyone's pity. He just needed to finally make peace with the boy he used to be. The elevator arrived with a soft ding. Liam stepped inside, the bright light enveloping him. The doors slid shut, sealing him off from the world of shock, gossip, and the sound of a girl's finally unrestrained, collapsing sobs. Outside, the city's neon lights streaked across the glass, washing over his calm profile in a river of color. His new life had started a long time ago. As the elevator doors closed, Liam leaned against the cool metal wall and let out a long, slow breath. The $5 million lie felt like a sudden gale force wind that had swept away the last lingering shadows of the past 4 years. He didn't care if Chloe believed it. What mattered was that he had personally written a sufficiently theatrical ending to a chapter of his life that desperately needed one. As the elevator descended, he knew the private room upstairs was in chaos. He pictured Chloe's pale, devastated face, but felt no triumphant glee, only a profound, settled peace. He stepped out of the hotel into the warm summer night. Ignoring the explosion of notifications from the class group chat and a flurry of calls from unsaved numbers, he dialed a familiar one. "Hey, you survive," a bright, cheerful voice answered. It was Sarah, his co-founder, and the person who currently occupied a space in his life that was more than just business partner. She had wanted to come tonight for the drama, but Liam had flatly refused. "Yeah, I dropped a bomb and walked out. The fallout should be spectacular," Liam said, sliding into the driver's seat of his car. "The $5 million story, you've got a flair for the dramatic," Sarah laughed. "Sounds a lot more empowering than the I overheard her calling me a backup plan sob story. So do you feel better?" Liam paused, his hand on the ignition. "I just feel done," he said honestly. It was true. The weight he had carried for years had simply vanished the moment the absurd lie left his lips. "Good. We've got a situation at the office. The initial data from the Starlight project just came in. It's better than we projected. On my way," Liam said, starting the car and pulling into traffic. In his rearview mirror, the Grand Hotel shrank and then disappeared. A new life, with more important challenges and a far more promising partner, was waiting for him. Upstairs, the room was imploding. $5 million. He had to be lying, right? Why would he lie? It explains everything. He had financial freedom, so he just rebooted his entire life. Man, if Chloe had just been nicer to him back then. "Ethan, you knew him pretty well. Did he ever mention it?" someone asked, turning to Ethan Vance, whose expression was grim. Ethan swirled his drink. Never said a word. His mind was reeling. $5 million was a staggering amount for a high school kid. The fact that Liam could win that kind of money and still have the discipline to get into MIT. Ethan suddenly felt that his own quiet condescension toward Liam back then had been laughably misplaced. Chloe stood frozen, the tears on her face having dried into sticky trails. All that remained was a hollowed-out feeling of humiliation. It was never about Ethan. It was never about her. He had his ticket out, and she had been prattling on, convinced of her own irresistible charm. Her taunt, "Don't come crying me later," was a boomerang that had just flown back and hit her in the face. The reunion ended awkwardly. Chloe drove home in a daze and collapsed on her couch. In the dark, her phone screen lit up repeatedly with notifications from the group chat, still dissecting Liam's lottery win, interspersed with messages tagging her, laced with pity and mockery. She sat bolt upright and began a frantic search on her laptop. State lottery winners record year. How to claim multi-million-dollar jackpots anonymously. She scoured old news articles, looking for any shred of evidence, but it was a digital ghost. The uncertainty was maddening. If he really won, then her 4 years of heartache were a pathetic, one-sided joke. A few days later, through a series of connections, she got the number of someone who did business with Liam's company. "Liam Miller," the man on the phone said. "His company's doing great, but I doubt his seed money came from the lottery. Their early fundraising was brutal. I remember his partner, Sarah, worked so hard she ended up in the hospital from exhaustion once. If he was sitting on $5 million, why go through all that?" Chloe's fingers tightened around her phone. He lied. There was no $5 million. A hot flash of anger being played was quickly extinguished by a much deeper, colder dread. If he didn't win the lottery, then the only reason left was the one she had refused to consider. He simply hadn't loved her anymore. He hadn't even cared enough to hate her. He just dismissed her and her 4 years of agonizing with a casual, devastating lie. That truth was infinitely more painful than the $5 million. Meanwhile, Liam's startup, Cloudsphere Analytics, was preparing for its series of funding pitch. Their flagship AI model, Starlight, was generating major buzz. He and Sarah were practically living at the office. One afternoon, Sarah walked into his office, her face serious. "We have a problem. Ethan Vance is making a play for the same VC firms we are." Liam looked up. After college, Ethan had joined his family's investment firm, making a name for himself with aggressive tactics. "He's interested in Starlight?" "Worse," Sarah said, sliding a tablet across the desk. "He's funded a direct competitor, and somehow, they've gotten their hands on our beta test data. I think we have a leak." Liam's jaw tightened. This wasn't competition, it was theft. "On top of that," Sarah continued, "I'm hearing he's been spreading rumors to investors. About you. Specifically, your high school history with Chloe. He's painting you as an unstable founder who makes decisions based on emotion." Liam let out a short, humorless laugh. Classic Ethan. "It's not funny, Liam. This could tank our pitch tomorrow." Liam stared at the tablet, at the malicious retelling of his past. Then he looked at Sarah, and a slow, determined smile spread across his face. "If they want to play dirty," he said, "let's show them how the game is really played." He picked up his phone. "Hey, it's Liam. I need to make a last-minute change to tomorrow's presentation deck." The next day, at the venture capital pitch, the room was filled with the heavyweights of the investment world. As expected, Ethan was in the back, a smug look on his face. Sitting next to him, looking pale and uncomfortable, was Chloe. Liam took the stage and delivered a flawless presentation on Starlight's technical superiority and market potential. Then came a Q&A. An investor raised his hand. "Mr. Miller, the technology is impressive. However, we have some concerns about founder stability. There are rumors circulating about your personal history. Could you address them?" All eyes turned to Liam. Ethan's smirk widened. Liam smiled calmly. "Thank you for the question. First, let me clarify. I never won $5 million. That was a joke I made at a high school reunion to put a rather painful chapter of my life to rest." A murmur went through the room. Chloe looked up, stunned. He was admitting it. As for why that chapter was so painful, Liam's gaze drifted to the back of the room, passing over Ethan and Chloe as if they were strangers. "The reason is simple. On my prom night, I overheard the girl I had spent my entire youth devoted to, telling someone else that I was nothing more than a useful backup plan." The room was utterly silent, captivated by the raw, unexpected honesty. "In that moment," he continued, his voice steady and strong, "I realized my loyalty had been mistaken for weakness. I learned 2 things that night. First, never let your self-worth be defined by someone else's opinion. And second, and more importantly, his eyes scanned the faces of the investors, his tone shifting from personal reflection to powerful conviction. The greatest investment you can ever make is in yourself. I didn't get into MIT because of a lottery ticket. I built Cloudsphere with my partners, not with inherited wealth, but with sleepless nights, relentless work, and an absolute belief in the value of what we were creating. The person standing before you today is not a heartbroken teenager, but a founder who turned the harshest lesson of his life into his greatest motivation. You're not investing in high school gossip. You are investing in resilience. You are investing in a team that has proven it can turn adversity into an asset. You are investing in Starlight. When he finished, there was a beat of silence, and then the room erupted in applause. His candor and strength had completely neutralized Ethan's petty smear campaign, making it look childish by comparison. After the pitch, Liam and Sarah were surrounded by interested investors. Ethan stormed out, and Chloe slipped away, only to be met at the door by Sarah. "Chloe," Sarah said, her voice not unkind. "He's moved on. You should too." Chloe looked at the confident, brilliant woman who stood as Liam's equal and then thought of her own stagnant, regret-filled years. She had nothing to say. She turned and fled. A month later, Cloudsphere Analytics closed a record-breaking series of funding round. Ethan's pet project was mired in a data theft scandal, costing his firm millions. After the celebratory dinner, Liam and Sarah walked along the riverfront. "You know," Sarah teased, bumping his shoulder, "we should probably send Ethan and Chloe a thank you card. Your backup plan speech is what sealed the deal for half those investors." Liam laughed and took her hand. "It's all in the past." And it was the pain, the anger, the boy he used to be. They were all just parts of a story that had led him here. The drama that began after a high school dance had finally, mercifully, reached its end.